Hey everyone, Miko here with Behavior Analyst Supervisor. I hope you're doing well. This is another installment of our free Wednesday Zooms. We do these Zooms every Wednesday, 5 p.m. now, so we've had a time change, but they'll be 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We go over a different topic. We hope you consider joining us. To find the link, you just can go on our website and find it there. We also post them here to YouTube after the fact, so if you can't make it, it's no worries. Without further ado, we are going to talk a little bit about some rules that we're taught and how those rules can get us into a little bit of trouble. So let's do it. All right, like I said, we're going to be talking about breaking rules, the rules they teach us and how they can get us into some serious trouble. We're going to go ahead and start this with a quote from the Dalai Lama. Know the rules well so that you can break them effectively. If this doesn't speak to my whole life, I don't know what does. You have to know the rules and able to break them, but you don't want to live your life by the rules always. You want to be a bit of a rule breaker. Live life on the edge. That's what we're going to help you do. This is just relating to the test. I do think you should follow rules. Now, don't go out there breaking laws or anything like that, but let's talk about some rules they teach us for this test and how we can get around them. We're going to do this a little bit backwards. We're going to go through a question first, and then I'm going to talk to you about the rule that they've taught you and how I actually want you to go about this. So, first and foremost, let's look at this scenario question. While working with a company to increase production of widgets, you analyze their current process and find that they are utilizing a reinforcement schedule in which staff members can either complete 5 products in the main office or they can complete 6 products in the back office. This most closely resembles which of the following? A concurrent schedule, a fixed ratio schedule, an alternative schedule, or a multiple schedule. Feel free to pause it here, take your time, answer the question. Sweet. So this is actually a multiple schedule. A lot of y'all probably picked alternative. That would be my guess because you use your keywords either or, which we do see or, and we do see either. But it's extremely important to remember that alternative schedules require an interval and a ratio. We don't have that here. We simply have a ratio and a ratio, and then we have them available at different times. So main office versus back office. You can't be in both offices at the same time. So that makes this, simply put, a multiple schedule. It's not a fixed ratio because, again, they're not available at the same time. Front office versus back office. And lastly, it's not concurrent. Concurrent deals with choice making, 2 or more behaviors, the matching law, behavior goes where reinforcement flows, all of those things, which we don't see here. The rule they teach us is for alternative schedules, we should look for either or, and for conjunctive schedules, we should look for and both. Now, those are good rules, and those typically are correct. However, it's not always correct. First, you need to look for the number of behaviors. So for alternative, there's one behavior or response class. There's an interval and a ratio. Then you use your keywords, either or. Same thing for conjunctive. One behavior or response class, interval and ratio. Then we use our keywords and in both. Ultimately, you need to have an interval and a ratio, and you need to have one behavior or response class. If you don't have those, then you want to stay away from it. It can't be alternative or conjunctive unless those are included. Hope that's a little more clear now. Let's continue on. Our next question, and again, all of these are a bit trick questions, so really think about it. While conducting a wide range of FBA procedures, you begin by taking baseline data on the behavior in question. The data yields interesting results, including the behavior occurs on average 3 minutes per 2-hour period throughout the day. The reported measure can be best categorized as trials to criterion, rate, partial interval recording, or percentage. Alrighty, again, sorry, another one of those trick questions. Here, the answer is actually percentage. Many of you picked rate because it says per. Per is a keyword that we look for rate, but it's not always that makes it rate. For rate, we need frequency over time. So you really want to think about the formula here before you simply select rate. Here, we don't have frequency, we have time over time. Time over time, simply put, makes a percentage. All right, let's look at another one. Your client is extremely disruptive, burping. Your client engages in extremely disruptive burping behavior during the class. There are 3 other kiddos in the classroom, as well as a paraprofessional that is trained to take data on the procedures. The school behavior analyst is concerned with the length of the behavior and would like to reduce it. Which of the following discontinuous measures should the paraprofessional take? So, should they use partial interval recording, whole interval recording, momentary time sampling, or rate? If you said whole, you'd be right. I'm guessing you picked partial, and that's okay. Partial, we're taught, usually is to decrease a behavior, which is true most of the time. And whole, we're usually taught, is to increase a behavior. But when you think about measurement procedures, you really need to be considering validity. Validity, accuracy, reliability are the foundation of our measurements. If it's not valid, what's the point in taking data? Well, what is validity? Validity is, am I answering the question being asked? Or textbook-wise, am I measuring the proper phenomenon that I'm concerned with? Or in other words, are you measuring the appropriate dimension of the behavior? Here, you're concerned with the length of the behavior, so we need to use a measurement that gives me an idea of the length. Partial will give me a crude minimum estimate of the rate or frequency, because if it happens once, I mark the interval as yes, that's having happened once. If it happens 10 times, I still mark it as once, so that gives me a minimum estimate of the rate. Whereas whole gives me a minimum estimated duration, because if it happens for the entire interval, I know that it happened for at least 30 seconds, if that's the length of the interval, or 40 seconds, or whatever the case is. That gives us that duration estimate. Momentary is kind of neither, right? If anything, I would say momentary gives us a rate, since if it's happening at that moment, but it certainly doesn't give us an idea of the length, so we'd eliminate that. And rate is not a discontinuous measure, so we can get rid of that too. All right, when we look at the rule, it's rate, we look for per. In reality, you need to look for frequency over time. For partial, we use for behaviors we want to decrease. Again, in reality, you want to ensure that you're looking for a behavior where you want to know the rate or frequency. And then whole, we use for behaviors we want to increase. And again, this deals with duration. So that is super important. We'll talk a little bit more about the rules here. We talked about frequency over time. Partial and whole, I want you to think about validity. If you would not use frequency to track it, you should not use partial interval. If you would not use duration, you should not use whole. If you want to use duration, or you want to get an idea of the duration, you should use whole. If you want to get an idea of the frequency, you should use partial. Hope that makes sense. Let's continue on. All right. Lyle would like his first-year coaches to implement a groundbreaking offensive strategy during the upcoming football season. They will be the first team to implement the strategy in Michigan. The strategy has increased offensive production by 50% at every school it has been implemented in. What should Coach Lyle do first? A. Send his coaches to a coaching conference related to the offense. B. Set a goal for his offensive coaches to increase production by 40% and give them $1 million bonus if they do so. I hope that happens for me. Set the goal to increase production by 80% and include $1 million bonus for hitting the goal. Terminate the coaches at the conclusion of the season if production is not increased. All right, the answer to this one is A, send his coaches to a coaching conference relating to the offense. Since this is a groundbreaking new offensive strategy, we know that the coaches do not know how to implement the strategy. Therefore, we must teach it before we reinforce it. A lot of times we're taught that reinforcement is the best route, and it is. Reinforcement is really good, but you can't reinforce a behavior that you don't have. You must teach it first. For example, if you want your client to clap their hands and they don't know how, giving them 1,000 minutes of Peppa Pig is not going to help. Even if Peppa Pig is the most reinforcing thing in the world, if they don't know how to clap their hands, we must teach it before we reinforce it. Super important. The rule here, always use reinforcement first. The better way, inventory current skills, teach before you increase. Teach before you increase. I think at the end of the day, what we want you to know is you really need to learn to dissect the questions thoroughly. You need to understand what's going on in the question, what the concept is, and how to break that concept out. I don't want you to rely on these keywords. I don't want you to rely on those things. Instead, I want you to know how to break it down. We have a question dissection video that I would recommend you check out. We also do one monthly, so if you're interested in attending one live, I would be happy to set you up with 10% off. Just feel free to send us an email, info@behavioranalystsupervisor.com. We also post questions every single day on Instagram. Feel free to check those out and let us know if they're helping. Well, again, I'm Mika with Behavior Analyst Supervisor, and I hope you consider joining us for a free Wednesday Zoom. And ultimately, I hope these free resources are helping you. We also have mock exams, mini mocks, all kinds of things like that on our website, www.behavioranalystsupervisor.com. Well, we'll talk to you soon.